problem is that we think bad things only happen to others.
Yeah.
And other people only die. We are sort of बहुत कम chance है यार. Hello everyone and welcome to our channel, The Mutual Fund Guys, where we only talk about mutual funds. Hi, I'm Samir, and across is Mahesh. Both Mahesh and I are partners at AMS Investments. Okay, so getting straight into the topic today. Today is a continuation of what we have discussed earlier. The difficulty for humans to be good, the difficulty to be consistent. And in the previous videos, we spoke about many reasons as to why it is so difficult to stick to the right path, to sort of tread along that journey consistently. Today we're going to talk about one of the reasons why we cannot stick to that path. What is it inherent in us that makes us so complicated, or it makes it so difficult for us to sort of tread that path for a long period of time? And that is something that Mahesh will discuss. Is optimism bias. And Mahesh, maybe you can start off by telling us what optimism bias is.
Yeah. So I would rather do that with the help of a story, right?
Sure.
So we all know about Mahabharata.
Yes.
And in that, there is the story of the Pandavas being in exile, right? So
Yes.
the brothers and the wife were all in exile. And at one time, they were very thirsty. What Yudhistra says is that, why don't Nakul, you go and try and see whether there is some water around. So Nakul, off he goes, and he sees a lake and is about to collect the water when spirit of the lake stops him and says that, unless you answer my question, you can't take water from here. And then Nakul, as usual, says that, no, I don't care, right? And he tries to take the water. And of course, he falls down dead because the spirit kills him. And then, since Nakul has not come back, then Yudhishthira sends the next brother, Sahadev, to see where is he, why is he not back. So Sahadev again reaches the lake, sees Nakul dead there, and still tries to take the water. The spirit says the same thing, answer my question or don't take the water. When even Sahadev refuses and he tries to take water and falls dead. And then this thing happens. Yudhishthira sends Arjun, the next brother, and still Arjun can't do this. Arjun does the same thing. He doesn't answer, he falls dead. And then Bhim is sent and the same thing happens. Finally, Yudhishthira himself reaches the lake and he sees his brothers dead. Okay, and he still tries to take water there. And the guardian angel or the spirit tells him, answer my question or you can't take this water, right? I am the owner of this lake. And Yudhishthira, being Yudhishthira, says, okay, I will answer the question. And the question that the spirit asks him is, Kim Ascharyam, which is Sanskrit, obviously, which roughly translates into what is surprising.
What is surprising?
Okay. And
Ashcharya,
yeah. So Yudhishthira, being Yudhishthira, answers the question and says that we see people dying all around us, and yet we live as if death will not befall us. And of course, that's the right question. The spirit feels happy and all the brothers are revived. Okay, and the Mahabharata continues. But this story actually highlights the point of optimism bias. When Yudhishthira says that we see people dying all around us, and yet all of us don't we live as if death will never befall us. And this is clearly a great example of what happens in terms of optimism bias. In optimism bias, we either overestimate the chance of something really good happening to us, or seriously underestimate the chance of something negative happening to us. For example, why do smokers smoke, right? Everybody knows that cancer is a possibility. But each one of the smokers actually underestimates the risk of cancer happening to them. They think it will happen to somebody else, but not to me.
In fact, Sadhguru, we all know who Sadhguru is.
Yeah.
He said that the biggest problem is that we think bad things only happen to others.
Yeah.
And other people only die. We are sort of, बहुत कम chance है यार, we'll get cancer. Or even during COVID times, Mahesh, you'll be surprised to know during COVID times, people are like, "Arey yaar, it's okay, it's nothing great. I'll survive through it."
Yeah.
Only other people are getting affected by it. And this was a phenomenon not in India, especially in the US, in America, when the president himself was, touting these claims, right?
Yeah.
So what you're saying is that optimism bias is very prevalent in a society, in every aspect of our life, whether
Right.
it's
And to a large extent, it helps us to live a good life, right? You need to have that bias and it serves a purpose. But when it comes to investing, it can be
yes,
it can have serious consequences. Like for example, our path that we talked about was that the process or the path is buy and buy for the long term, right?
yeah,
You don't keep interfering with with that decision. Don't keep timing the market, etc. And
yes,
there is enough and more proof from mutual funds, and they have been talking about the fact that whatever mutual fund returns have been there, if very few of the investors actually experience that return, right? Because they
right,
have been timing the market, they have tried to buy and sell at the wrong time, etc. Greed and fear plays its role. And optimism bias is also a killer there, because what happens is that we know that buy and hold is the right strategy,
correct,
but we feel that this is a problem for others. I uh, believe that I can time it, right? Every
mm,
investor believes that he has a better chance of timing it than the average person who can't
correct,
time it, right? So they think that मैं कर सकता हूँ, I will be able to sell at the top and buy back lower. Or they also assume that who the hell is a mutual fund? Like, I know how to buy stocks myself, and why should I pay that 1%, 1.5% to the fund manager? Oh, वैसे भी not so good. I am the
mm,
best kind of thing, right? So
yeah.
this problem is not because I mean, this is really out of that very inherent quality in human beings, which is this optimism bias.
So I just want to say a few things, Mahesh. One is that optimism bias is good in certain areas of our life. They call it positive thinking. You know, positively you think,
Yeah,
okay, things will not go wrong with you. Okay, that's fine. But you know, in this instance where you have an optimism bias when you're doing your own stock portfolio trading or investing, it becomes a very big challenge for two reasons. There are ample times where I've seen someone who manages his own portfolio of stocks, suddenly there is a big event in a company, okay, and the stock is falling precipitously, like, just falling, and this person will buy that stock, for example, right? Now, the intention is what, that I have more knowledge than the rest of the market, and I don't believe this should happen, so I'm
yeah,
going to do this, okay. And this can actually result in a lot of pain for the small investor. This happened with a lot of companies in the recent past, whether it was Diwan Housing or Yes Bank. And what happened was that people kept thinking that they know more
hmm,
about the outcome of this
yeah,
than what the fact was. And this is why I think people who are doing investing directly in stocks have to be extremely careful about this optimism bias. And the advantage a mutual fund has is that an optimism bias might be with one person in the fund, but because they have so many analysts and so many research analysts and fund managers, it's a collective effort by everyone to challenge each other
correct.
about their biases. That's why you will never see these kind of events happening on that level, at least. Okay. So this is something that I think people who are doing investing on their own should be very, very careful. Of course, be optimistic about your other aspects of your life. It's good to have some kind of optimism bias there. But in investing, you have to be doubly sure that what you're thinking is the right thing you're thinking,
Yeah.
and you can make very brutal mistakes, in my opinion.
Almost every person we meet is seriously underfunded in terms of his insurance. Like they would
Yes.
have less term cover than they need. They will
Mhm.
have less medical insurance than they need, because
Mhm.
they expect that negative things will not really
What
happen to
happened?
them. Not just
Correct.
that, almost everybody underestimates the expenses that will happen post
Correct.
retirement and
Yes.
overestimates the ability to create retirement wealth, in the next
Yeah.
few years. So this overestimating of what they can create and underestimating of what is required,
Required.
the double whammy, right? So
Double happy.
all these biases have to be, if you're aware of this bias, you will at least try and double check the numbers that you have yourself created, right? As
Created.
to how much is going to be your expenses post retirement, how much is the money required now, all those things you will at least double check your assumptions.
Yeah. We have talked about optimism bias. We'll be talking about confirmation bias in the next episode. These are all normal, natural traits humans have. I
Yeah,
mean, it's one of the reasons why we have survived as a species for such long periods of time.
absolutely.
But the have these biases in the field of investing can be slightly detrimental and can lead to really bad outcomes. So our endeavor here is to tell people, look, if you believe or you're heading towards that path that you think that you are right, or you are optimistic about a certain outcome, you need to challenge that outcome. You need to make
Yeah.
sure that you really think through it properly before you sort of jump on and say, look, no, this is what the answer is, and I know the answer. I don't need to discuss it anymore. I think we need to sort of take a step back and realize that sometimes we don't need to be that optimistic. I know a lot of 40-year-olds these days. I'm 44, and we are seeing a lot of health issues arising in the
Yeah.
44-year-olds and 40-year-olds. And as a 40-year-old, I sometimes have that bias as well. You know, okay, I work out, I go and play tennis, so nothing will happen to me.
Hmm.
But if you look at the data, a lot of people who actually had issues regarding their heart or whatever are also they were quite fit. They're not
Hmm.
like they were not
On
unfit
the
people,
face
right?
of it, they were pretty fit, right?
Fit, yeah, they were fit. And so it's very hard to sort of say, like, then I, of course, realize, I have this optimism bias, that I'm thinking I need to really understand, what are the gaps I have in my health
Yeah.
to make sure that I don't repeat the mistakes that maybe they had done, lack of sleep, or, even something like nutrition, emotional balance, all of that, right? So if you recognize it, that you have an optimistic bias
Yeah.
towards your own livelihood and your own future, then try and correct it as soon as you can. It will lead you to a much more fulfilling life.
So this is one of the things that we should be aware of. These are
Yes.
biases which are so inherent that you can't cancel it out. You can't
Yeah.
stop. Just being aware helps you to double check. That's it.
In the realm of investing, really boils down to you trying to either think you're better than the market,
Yeah.
or you have more knowledge than the market does or the market participants do. This is where the biggest downfall happens, I think, for people. Market is a collection of people's opinions, and there's a lots of people who are in the market, right? So when you are taking a stand that I know more than the market, then you have to be really, 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 really
Yeah.
sure.
Or I know more than the average investor, and
Investor, yeah,
therefore I will try and do something which others have not succeeded in doing. Right.
correct.
And that's the key problem. Believe that I can do what others can't.
So this is great, and so this is one of the episodes that we did even before this was, again, how do we try and limit these biases. The next episode is going to be about confirmation bias.
Very
It's
important. Yeah.
very important, slightly similar to confidence bias, but it's also not exactly the same thing. But we'll discuss that, and then once you hear that episode and hear this one, you'll understand what we're trying to say in terms of general biases that we have as human beings. So stay tuned for the next episode and see you soon.